And good evening and happy holidays, Cuse Nation. Welcome to the Upstate Orange podcast on FingerLakes1.tv and YouTube. We're coming at you live from inside the FingerLakes1.com studios in downtown Seneca Falls, New York on Sunday, December 27th, 2015. I'm Jim Sinacropi. Be joined in a second by the Professor Brad Connor via telephone in Cincinnati. And for the next 45 minutes or so, we'll be talking about Syracuse's 3 wins heading into conference play. Last time we were together, 2 weeks ago, we took a week off. Syracuse had gone on a little bit of a losing skid, losing to St. John's to, culminate what was a tough week and a half for the Orange under Mike Hopkins. And they've bounced back with 3 wins, or have they? I guess we'll kind of talk about it. The competition level wasn't the same, but nonetheless, 3 wins for the Cuse, including a win earlier today against Texas Southern. And so we'll talk all about that. And, of course, stay tuned for Connor's Corner Trivia. The Upstate Orange podcast is brought to you by Generations Bank with locations in Auburn, Farmington, Geneva, Phelps, Seneca Falls, Union Springs, and Waterloo. Be sure to check out their mobile banking app or visit them online at mygenbank.com. And with that, I'd like to welcome into the show the Professor, Brad Connor. How you doing tonight, Brad? And happy holidays.
Jim, happy holidays to you and to your family. Hope it was a very Merry Christmas and good upcoming week leading into the new year.
It was a Merry Christmas. As I was telling you before we started the show here tonight, I put together a basketball hoop. It took about 6 hours out of my day Saturday. The parts are all coded by size on the sheet. You got to match them up, and there's like 48 steps. And, man, that was rough. It kind of beat me down a little bit. Beat down my spirit, my
Hopefully
Christmas spirit.
Hopefully you didn't have any parts left over when you were done.
I did have a couple washers, though, so that's a little disconcerting. But so far, nobody's been hurt. So,
good.
Last time we were together, man, it was tough. We lost to Georgetown, Wisconsin, St. John's, and everything was falling apart, and Boeheim's still in the middle of that suspension. So we've got 3 wins against Cornell, Montana State, and Texas Southern. All home games, and now we're heading into ACC play. And I guess the first topic of the night would be, have we improved over the last 3 games since we talked last? Because there was a lot of problems with this team after that St. John's loss that we talked about. And, ACC play's about to start, and did these last 3 games, did we fix anything? Are we getting better?
I wouldn't say they're necessarily getting better. They stayed in game shape. I think that's the best thing that can be said about it, that nobody got injured. I think that's another positive. We saw some good things. We saw some not-so-good things. They shouldn't have had Texas Southern hanging as close as they did for as long as they did. I mean, they pulled away in the first half, and then Texas Southern never seemed to go away. From time to time, they let lesser teams get runs on them. They won both games all 3 games by double digits. That's a positive, but yeah, there's still a lot of things that this team can do to get better. We'll talk more about some of the things that really frustrated me over the last couple of games, but there were some good things, and one we'll talk about, I know, is the improved play of DeJuan Coleman. That's a very pleasant sight to see, and I think we're all rooting for him to continue that positive play.
Yeah, and we will talk about Coleman in a moment here. I really don't think they improved that much anything. Honestly, it's kind of a lesser opponent. They get these semi-easy wins that it feels like they should be by a wider margin maybe than they are, even though they were all double-digit wins. The emergence of DeJuan Coleman's great. But again, against the inferior competition, it might be a mirage. And, I don't see anything different out of Cooney. Benny J continues to play well, of course. I haven't seen any major improvements in Roberson or Malachi Richardson. Maybe Malachi's shooting a little better. But, that's a little disappointing. And we haven't seen the bench emerge either. Anybody from the bench. You might say Frank Howard a little bit. He had 6 points in garbage time today. But, Chinoso Oboko had a career high over that stretch, 11 points. Maybe that might be, you might think that would be something to get excited about, but his name doesn't even appear in the box score of the Texas Southern game. So, yeah, I would say no. I'd say they haven't, sadly, and that has me concerned about heading down to Pitt on Wednesday and then Miami next weekend.
Yeah, it would have been nice in these 3 games to see something a little bit different. This team seems to have a single style. I didn't see a press. I didn't see, obviously they're not going man to man. I didn't see much trying to pound the ball down to the low block. Coleman did a bit. That was encouraging, but he just didn't play very much. And Oboko was, did some nice things, but he was sort of right place at the right time in a couple of those cases. They're not pounding the ball down to Tyler Roberson ever. And it's just 1 3-pointer after another. I mean, this team just launches threes. I mean, practically half their shots today were 3-pointers. They've shot, 20-plus threes in every one of their games in the last 3 games. I mean, I don't know. It's kind of tiring to see. I mean, fans like 3-pointers, but I sort of like balanced basketball a little bit more, and we didn't see any of it really in the last couple of games. They just want to jack threes up. And what would have been nice is to use these games to experiment with some different rotations, different lineups, different strategies. And with Hopkins there instead of Boeheim, I guess they're a bit limited in how creative they want to get in terms of what they're trying to learn and trying to get out of it. But, yeah, we saw the same team these last 3 games as we saw in the first 10, and, with mixed results in those first 10. So, yeah, that part I agree is pretty disappointing.
Yeah, I guess that's a great indicator of improvement is that it looks the same as it did before. Just, like I say, playing against inferior competition. But, look, DeJuan Coleman's kind of semi-broken out here and, putting up some numbers and making his presence felt in the middle. And I want to get excited about Coleman with 14 points and 7 rebounds today, and he had 13 points and 4 rebounds against Montana State in limited time, 12 minutes. And then against Cornell, pulled down 7 boards in 18 minutes. And he just looks to be like coming along. But, you'd like to see the guy get a 25-minute game in, once in a while. He played 12 minutes against Montana State. And
Jim, I don't understand it. He plays 5 minutes and they take him right out, regardless of how productive he was. He was the only guy producing offense in the first half of that Montana State game in the first 5-6 minutes. And he comes right out and he doesn't play again until the second half. I don't understand. I looked in a lot of different post-game articles and pieces that were written. I don't see anything addressing his lack of playing time. Can it be conditioning still?
I don't know if it's necessarily conditioning, but I think that the coaches get a free pass on this with the media because of his injury history. So, why bother asking the question when the coaching staff can just say, ambiguously say that they're, bringing him along? I think that gives him a bit of a pass, but he's either ready to play or not.
This week, they need him out there for 25, 30 minutes. I don't understand why he's only getting 12 against Montana State.
Yeah, it's like, as you mentioned, especially when he's playing well, and the guy's made 9 of his last 10 free throws. So, Syracuse actually as a team is shooting pretty well from the free throw line recently. But yeah, let the guy play. As long as he's not in foul trouble, let him go. Let him go. I can't imagine that his chance of injury is going to increase if he plays, 25 minutes a night instead of 18. It's just 7. I mean, I don't get it. And they're not deep, and they're not bringing in one of the other big guys behind him. They're bringing in Tyler Lydon. But I would like to see Tyler Lydon out there with Coleman. Sometimes.
No, they went with the 2 of those guys on occasion, and I thought it worked pretty well. They would take Roberson out and keep Lydon in and have Coleman in. I thought that, the 2 of those guys together on the back line is pretty good in zone. I think they could rebound pretty well out of that. Taking Roberson out, frankly, I'd love to see a back line of Roberson and Coleman and Lydon. I mean, that would be a great rebounding threesome on the back line. But I can't recall having seen the 3 of them on the court together yet.
Yeah, it is kind of a mystery, and the dynamic of Mike Hopkins running the show and making the subs makes it even that more difficult to kind of talk about. If it's Boeheim, we've got some history in how he normally subs, and we can, debate a million reasons why with a little bit of substance behind it. But it seems with Hopkins in there now, you don't know if he's trying to do what Boeheim would have done or if this is what he really wants to do. And then it almost doesn't make you wonder if it makes sense to even talk about it because Boeheim's going to be back in, a week. So
yeah, and maybe that's why he's getting a pass on it too, right? Because it's maybe they're not clear if it's his decision or if it's Coach Boeheim's decision. And in the end, I'm not sure they feel like they're probably going to get a straight answer either way.
Yeah, absolutely. So, in that vein of discussion, what the heck? Why the short bench? Why can't Chinoso Boko play a little more? Why can't Caleb Joseph play a little bit more? Why can't Howard play a little bit more? Why against Montana State and Cornell and Texas Southern does Michael Benajay need to play 40 minutes? Today, 40 minutes, 33 minutes against Montana State, and 39 minutes against Cornell, a team that we beat by 19 points. Not to mention all these other guys like Cooney playing all the time, Brad. I mean, I know this is something that drew your ire a little bit.
And I've alluded to this over the last couple of weeks, and I'm going to go on record as saying this is why this team fails in March. They wear these guys out. They go with the short bench and the tight rotation in games in November and December that don't mean anything. I mean, legitimately, the Montana State game doesn't mean anything. If you lost, yeah, it's a bad loss.
Right, but if you win by 5 or you win by 25, yeah.
You can draw out any rotation. You're going to win that game. You'll win it down the stretch if nothing else. But you tire guys out. They're worn out by March, and then you get an injury. God forbid one of your top rotation guys goes down. You've got nobody to fill in. You're relying on a guy like Fat Mello, and he goes out because of God knows what, and you don't have anybody to fill in because they've not been getting minutes up until then. You get a guy like Chris McCullough goes down in the beginning of ACC play last year. Nobody's ready to play for him because they haven't been playing in the crap games that don't mean anything leading up to it.
Yeah,
this is a constant problem with this team and with this program. And you want to talk about Jim Boeheim. He's won 900 plus games, and that's fantastic. He wins all the games preseason that he needs to win, but he focuses on those games to the point where he desperately wants to win those games as much as he wants to win the games in February and March. The games in November, December don't matter. The games in March matter. And he's wasting his resources on the games in November and December. Guys are wiped out. The bench guys aren't ready. You need those guys in March. They're tired out. They lose games in March. They should win. I'm telling you right now, that's why. I'm tired of it. I'm tired of seeing Trevor Cooney on the court with 1 minute to go in a 25-point game when they don't need him. When Caleb Joseph was in there for 19 seconds today, Jim, he came in 19 seconds to go in the first half, makes one poor rotation in the zone, gives up a three, didn't play in the second half. You've got Trevor Cooney and Michael Benajay playing the entire second half, and Caleb Joseph isn't even on the court. If you're trying to send a message to the kid, fine. But you need that depth. You need Michael Benajay to get a spell late in the season. And if Caleb Joseph hasn't played in 3 weeks, he's not going to be ready. End of story, period. I'm tired of it.
Yeah, if I wanted to disagree with you, I could say, well, they're college kids. They're in good shape. They're in good enough shape to make that run. But even if that was the true, you can't argue the other way that you're not getting experience for these other kids that are going to be part of your program. Not only can help you this year, but also you got to develop them for next year. And so, and by the way, I don't disagree with you that they do get fatigued, as the year goes on. It's a long season, and
it's a grind. The conference season is a grind. I don't care if you're playing Clemson or Wake Forest every night. It's still a grind.
Yeah, and coming off of a high school schedule for most of these guys, like even Benajay and Cooney, by now I guess it's a little different story. They're used to how the college season generally progresses and what it's like. But for our freshmen and sophomores, there's still an adjustment there to that length of season, and the travel's a lot too.
Games, once you hit conference, are going to be more physical games. I mean, just the physicality of those games takes their toll. You don't see as much in the games against Montana State and Texas Southern and Cornell and Colgate and all those games. Once you start playing big guys in the ACC, they're going to get worn down. Coleman, if he's not playing more than 15 minutes now, there's no way he's going to be able to handle it come when he's banging against Tanya Jacari for Miami and the Plumlees for Duke. I mean, these guys will bang you all day long, and that's not what we're seeing here. You can at least get him 20 minutes a night against Texas Southern to prepare him at least from a fatigue standpoint to get him ready for these games. I just don't get it. I don't understand the philosophy there.
Yeah, and then when you get into ACC play, too, you're also taking a lot of plane rides and going on a lot of road trips. So far, they had a vacation in the Bahamas, and every game that they play, they just, take a ride from South Campus, to the Dome and start suiting up. So it's...
Hey, I know Trevor Cooney can play. I know what he can do. I know Michael Benajay can play. I know what he can do. It doesn't feel like Mike Hopkins or Jim Boeheim need to prove how good they can be and how many points they can score and how well they can lead this team. What I want to see is can Caleb Joseph rebound from a so-so freshman year and a pretty poor first month of the season. If he didn't play today and he played 19 seconds, if he didn't play today, you're not going to see that guy for the rest of the season, man. There's no chance of that guy getting off the bench. If he didn't get off today, forget it. It's Frank Howard or bust at that point for any backcourt depth. I don't see it. If it didn't happen today, when's it going to happen?
Yeah, we talked about Caleb Joseph being the primary target for transfer at the end of this season. And, if today's any indication that we were probably pretty right on that call. And, you even look at, as far as Joseph goes, 7 minutes against Cornell. And he's played 13 minutes against Montana State. He scored 2 points. He scored 2 points over the last 3 games in a total of, let's say, 20 minutes and 19 seconds. So
it's crazy. Chinonso Oboko did some nice things in the last game, and like I said, some of it was right place at right time. But Montana State's a Division I team, and Oboko had a decent productivity against them. He didn't get off the bench today. You can't even give him 1 minute. Are you kidding me? Like what about today's game against Texas Southern would have told Mike Hopkins, we just can't afford to put Oboko in the game. It might really hurt our chances of winning this critical preseason game. I mean,
he had 11 points and 6 rebounds.
What's the mindset there? I don't get that.
11.6 rebounds against Montana State, and then not even good enough to see the floor. And, you might get a lot of coach speak like, well, if you were to press him on that issue, Mike Hopkins might say, well, he didn't have a good week in practice. There is all these other things that we don't see. But, the guy's been part of the program now. Boko, this is his 3rd season on the Hill, I believe. Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he had 1 redshirt season.
Yeah.
And why do we recruit kids like him? We knew he was a project coming in. Is it what's the end game?
To participate in practice?
Right. I thought that, this guy might be...
That's what walk-ons are for.
A guy that would learn to be a great player in the center of the zone. Not a great player, but, a productive, solid player that could fill minutes in the center of the zone.
Type who doesn't score much but can be active in the zone and rebound.
Exactly. Or Jeremy McNeil. There's a long line of these guys, but the difference between Chinonso Oboko and those guys is those guys have got to play at least 5-10 minutes a game. So I agree with you on that, and I do believe it does hurt us in March. And it's
I fear the second half of a game against Duke or Carolina or Miami or even Pitt, they're going to get down to the last 4 or 5 minutes and
he's just run out of
steam. Be able to
steam.
hit shots. Benajay's legs are going to be a little bit tired. He's not going to get the lift on his shot. He's going to leave shots short. I mean, this team lives and dies by the 3.
Roberson or Coleman will foul out.
A 3-pointer to score points in the last 5 minutes of games.
You get a foul out, and then you get, you're bringing in a guy like a Boko, or you're forced to bring in Caleb Joseph or Frank Howard, and they just aren't as seasoned or haven't given the opportunity to experience enough game time to feel normal and comfortable out there on any court. If they first time that
because they haven't played since the Colgate game, 6 weeks earlier.
Yep. Well, let's evaluate one more player here for topic 4 of our Big 5 topics, and that's Tyler Roberson. He's a junior now. You seen just rare flashes of dominance, and then he just goes back to mediocrity. Like, I don't think Tyler Roberson's killing us out there. I don't think he's really lifting us up out there either. We need the rebounding he provides, but the end of the day, for the minutes that Roberson's getting, you'd like to see a little bit more scoring, and 33 minutes against Cornell, 15 points, 12 rebounds. That's great. The next game, only 23 minutes of action, is Montana State, 5 points, 8 rebounds. And then today, in 26 minutes of action, 8 points and 5 rebounds. And it's just not good enough, It just isn't. And he wasn't in foul trouble. And matter of fact, he had more fouls in the Cornell game than the other two games. So the coaching staff may be preferring Leiden over him. But, we talk about sophomore year being a breakout year for a player. What about Roberson as a junior?
I don't know. I think what you see is what you get with Tyler Roberson. I mean, we see flashes of really nice play. We've seen multiple double-doubles from him, which is great, and that's what we would like to see every game. And then there's other games where he just kind of disappears, and I don't know if that's just – I mean, the issue that I think he has is he can't create his own shot, so he has to rely on either putbacks or he's getting the ball swung to him at the elbow and he's making that elbow jumper. I think he's sort of limited in his offense between putbacks and elbow jumpers. He can't. I don't. Have you ever seen him play with his back to the basket? Have they ever posted him up ever against anybody? He's not big enough. I guess he's tall enough, but he's just not wide enough and strong enough to be able to have a low post game. So he resorts to mid-range jumpers and putbacks. I mean, he's a good rebounder, but I would contend that Tyler Leiden's more active rebounder than Roberson is.
Yeah, it's and again, it just occurs to me, with a guy like Roberson, you wait and say, well, he's going to get better, he's going to get better, he's going to get better. But I think now is the time when he's supposed to be better, when he's supposed to be a lot better, especially with the lack of interior players for the Syracuse team. It was an opportunity for him to really emerge as, a top power forward in the ACC type of deal. That's the upside that you hope that he would be reaching towards now. But, frankly, he's just not, and he's not. Like I say, he's not, doing a terrible job or anything. It's just in past, some of the great Boeheim teams have had players who exceeded that expectation, whether it's Andy Routens is the prime example, but there's dozens of players over the years, and and this team doesn't have any of those guys. They have guys that haven't yet reached, with the exception of Michael Benajay, who transferred in, but was a McDonald's All-American. So he's doing now what a McDonald's All-American should be doing in his 5th year in college, right? But all the other guys.
The reason Duke recruited him, they only go after the best of the best.
Yeah, and so the entire rest of the roster, starting with Trevor Cooney, is not doing what we expected they would eventually do yet. And Roberson, I would argue, is falling behind the curve, the timeline, of progression. And it's just a little disappointing because
is it a strength issue with him? I mean, he's still, he's kind of lean. He doesn't really, body people inside. I think he relies on positioning and, an exceptional leaping ability to get his rebounds, but it doesn't really help him on offense at all.
It could be conditioning, sure. It could be that he hasn't gotten bigger. Part of it, I think, is his own confidence. He doesn't seem like a guy that has a lot of self-confidence, and so that could be it. I don't really think that any of these kids don't work. If I don't want to say, well, Tyler Roberson's not working hard enough, I'm sure that he's putting in plenty of time, and he's got the academics to worry about too. So I don't like to get too hard on any of these college kids and just say that they're not working. It's just it's just, I guess, not happening. It's almost like playing the old video games where used to play college hoops 2K5 or something like that. It was where you would, recruit guys, and one of their, ratings was potential. And so if a guy had a B potential, he might progress a certain number of points in his career, and a guy had an A potential, you expected a lot out of that. And I kind of had Roberson as a B plus, A minus type potential guy, when he entered the program midway through his freshman year, and where I thought he would be by now, he's just not there, in my opinion. So, so all this, you go ahead.
No, I think it's a struggle with him just to get him consistent offense, and I think that generally we judge players by their offensive aptitude and productivity, and I think with him it's just they never really run anything for him, and so he's left just sort of to fit in with what else. He's going to rebound 3-point shots, and he's going to rotate to the top of the key, or to the free throw line, and get mid-range jumpers. I wish they would try and create something for him. And I think what we saw last year with Christmas was they went out of their way to create a lot more for him, and he was legitimately one of the few options they had. But it doesn't seem like Tyler Roberson is ever the first option on this offense.
He's the fifth option, I'd say.
Where they try to run something for him.
I'd say he's the fifth option. You got Benajay, Cooney, and then probably Richardson, and just slightly ahead of Roberson, and who's getting shots. And
right.
And that,
it's unfortunate. I think he's kind of the odd man out on this offense, unfortunately.
Yeah, and maybe that's something that needs to change. But so far most of what we talked about has had a little negative spin on it, so I'm not sure how that's going to make us feel about the next topic. But are we ready for the ACC season? Because Wednesday night we're heading to the Pete. We're going down to Pittsburgh for the opener, 9:00 start, and then just 3 days later we're at Miami on Saturday, 2:30 in the afternoon. So 2 road games start the ACC season, a place that we seldom win at in Pittsburgh, and then against a very good Miami team in Miami. And, so are we ready? Because here we go, ready or not.
Yeah, they're as ready as they're ever going to be, I think. I'm not sure these last 3 games got them ready. I mean, if they can channel what they did in Bahamas against UConn and Texas A&M, then yeah, I think this team can perform at that level and has it in them. But again, this team just lives and dies with the 3. I mean, when it's all said and done, unfortunately, that's what we're stuck with. If they're making threes, they can beat virtually anyone in this conference. But you can't rely on the 3 as your primary mode of attack in every game. I mean, I don't think that's a recipe for success. But with any team, whether it's Duke or Louisville or the Syracuse team. So I think what you see is what you get. Like we said, they've got a style of play, and we saw it against UConn and Texas A&M. We saw it against Montana State. That's what we're going to see coming up in the next 16 games.
Yeah, and I think that defensively we're not ready. This team defensively is not playing that great in the zone. Cooney's not. Just as frustrating to watch him try to play it, especially as a senior, a guy who's supposed to have it down. The amount of shooters he leaves open is just kind of silly. And, our lower wing players, he's got Richardson down there a lot. Leiden, I like him in the middle, but even Roberson down there on the wing, it's, I don't know, the defense just isn't the same. It's not as good as it has been. Statistically, it isn't as good as it has been, and it's too bad because
I'll tell one thing that I'm fearful of, and this today's game wasn't much of a game, and there wasn't much to be made of it. But one thing that Texas Southern was doing, especially early on before Syracuse made some adjustments, was they were going over the top of that zone for alley-oops, and that they had the one guy I forget his name, but he was he would just go for alley. They were throwing alley-oops to him. A great athlete, but you're going to see those night after night in the ACC, and so they, I think that they don't defend the back line nearly as well as they need to, and I think that Texas Southern, 1-9, now 1-10, kind of figured that out. That that back line is very vulnerable to lob passes, I think that's going to be a challenge. Derek Griffin, that was the guy's name, and he was a great player. I loved watching him, and they had it figured out. They got it to the high post. They brought the center up to the high post to close out on what they thought was a shooter, and then just over the top. And they did that time and time again. And if Texas Southern can figure that out, boy, I'll bet Roy Williams and Mike Krzyzewski and Rick Pitino can probably figure that out too. So that's a real issue for these guys. I agree with you, Jim.
Yeah, so I guess the answer is no. We're probably not ready, and we're in jeopardy, honestly, of moving right off the bubble with a bad start here. It's would be very disappointing to not make the field after what happened last year with the penalty, and it would be 2 straight years, and it's just unfathomable.
They showed the one stat during the game though that said, when this team loses 3 or more preseason games, they're 0 and they haven't made a tournament in any of those 4 years, and now this is the 5th year where they've lost 3 or more preseason games. So
yeah,
that's not a very positive trend. I think that's because once you get into conference play, it's going to be that much tougher.
If you could rewind the clock 3 years, even let's go back 3 years and say, hey, 2 years from now, 3 years from now, Syracuse will miss the NCAA tournament for the 2nd consecutive year. And keep in mind,
the team was number 1 in the country, and Tyler Ennis was making half-court shots. Yeah, that would blow anybody's mind if you fast forward it from that point.
1 year, you'd say, sure, anything can happen. You have a bad year, have an injury, which we did with McCullough. But if that team wasn't on probation, they probably wouldn't have made the NCAA tournament either.
It's funny though. I saw something. I wish I knew where I saw it. I wish I could give credit to whoever I saw it put this together. But they said since Tyler Ennis made that shot, since they were number 1 in the country, and if they lost their next game, or it was when they were undefeated. And then they lost their first game after being undefeated. From that day forward, they've played. I think, and it may be more than that now, but they played 50 games since that time. This is the worst 50-game stretch that this program has ever endured in the Jim Boeheim era. Since they were undefeated in that 25-0 run, which is crazy to think about. But that was the pinnacle, and it's been downhill since that day, literally.
Yeah, that is. I didn't know that stat, but you can feel it to be true. I mean, you can just feel the mediocrity over the past calendar year, and it's not something we're not used to.
500 since that time, which there were only a handful of games above 500 because in the course of that season, I think they lost 6 of their last 8 after that point, and then last year I think there were only 5 or 6 games above 500. Was it 18-13 or 19-12?
Well,
so it's been bad since that day, and maybe it's it's Tyler Ennis going pro early, and it left him a hole at point guard, and they didn't get as much production out of the Dajuan Coleman that they thought they were going to get, and maybe some recruiting misses in the meantime.
Sure, the entire class transferred. The entire Ron Patterson class transferring away. Basically, B.J. Johnson,
the distraction
Patterson.
of the investigation and the
that's
impact
a big part.
That's had now.
Yeah, that's a big
all
part.
These things have hit all in the last year and a half.
Yep, I agree. It's been tough after we were kind of in a little golden age there, for a while for the Cuse. So, Pittsburgh Wednesday, Miami Saturday. Here we go. And I also would like to move along here and get going with some Connor's Corner trivia. Great Syracuse basketball trivia, courtesy of the professor. What do you got this week for us, Brad?
Jim, I know how you love the ACC.
It's my favorite conference.
You're a huge ACC fan. I've known for a long, long time. ACC play is beginning this week, so we'll go with a little ACC trivia tonight. I'll try and limit it because, I know you can only handle but so much ACC trivia. You get really excited, I know.
I'm just going to answer Len Bias to all the answers, all the questions.
I wish every question I had Len Bias as the answer. That's one of my favorite ACC players ever. How many ACC programs have won a national championship?
You have North Carolina and Duke. You have Syracuse.
Yep. Yep.
So we're going back this is all time, right? There's going to be some oldies in there, maybe.
All time.
Wake Forest.
Incorrect.
Okay, I thought they did.
Wake made one Final Four back in like the 50s. The 60s. Billy Packer was on that team.
Oh, none of the Tim Duncan teams ever did anything? Never got to the Final Four?
Never won it. Just one Final Four. Billy Packer was on that team. It was 1957 or something.
Wow.
But that was the only time they've been in the Final Four. They never won it.
And Florida State, I don't think's won it. Georgia Tech hasn't won it. Virginia never won it with Ralph Sampson. I'm sticking with that 3. I'm going to say 3. I'm probably missing one, but I'm going to say 3.
You're missing 2.
2, huh? Boston College in like 1940 something. Oh, Louisville, duh.
Oh, it goes.
Yeah, Louisville.
Oh, yeah, right. Yeah. So that's 4.
The 5th one. You're saying the 5th one doesn't go back that far, huh?
It goes back several years.
Like,
but it's one you'd remember.
Pre-Big East? Oh, duh. How dumb. NC State.
Correct.
Yeah, 5. Yeah.
Jim Valvano team, but they also won back in 74 with David Thompson.
Yep.
So the ACC has won 16 national championships total with current ACC members.
Mm-hmm.
Duke's won 5, including last season. Carolina's won 5. Louisville's won 3. NC State's won 2, and Syracuse has won 1. And that's it.
Yeah.
The mighty conference that they are.
Yep. Big East.
All right.
Big East had Syracuse, Georgetown, UConn, Villanova.
Yep.
Louisville.
Yep. Cincinnati.
Cincinnati, right. Going back to 1957 or something like that, right?
1960 and 61.
Marquette,
yeah.
So there's 7 right there. St. John, no, never St. John's. Did they ever win one back in the
I can't remember if St. John's may have won it in the early days, not in the pre-Big East days, obviously.
Yeah. Yeah, so I think that's probably it, 7. Still pretty good.
Yeah, Boston College definitely never won it.
Yeah. Yeah, so, all right. Okay, proceed.
All right. So, how well do you recall the top scorers from the ACC from last season? Can you name me anybody's returning leading scorer?
Oh, my God. You're really going to make me look stupid here. Yeah.
All right, let's do this. Name me any of the 10 returning top scorers from last season in total in the ACC. Like, I don't even care what team.
Had to be North Carolina. Had to have a couple of them. Can't even think of the kid's name. He was hurt start of the year. Page.
Marcus Page, yep.
Yeah.
He was on that list. He was the 4th leading returning scorer in points per game.
Does Virginia have anybody back? Yeah, Virginia had to have somebody on that list.
They did. They had one guy who's 5th returning scorer on this list.
Yeah, I'm not going to come up with his name, though.
Malcolm Brogdon.
Yeah, Brogdon, the point guard.
Yeah.
And other than that, Hazell back for Louisville?
Do you remember any returning players in the ACC? Let me just ask you that question.
Pretty much no, because I tell you, I don't like it. I can't.
ACC.
Yeah, I just can't. You know what I find myself doing? I find myself watching Seton Hall versus St. Peter's or something on Fox Sports 1 rather than Virginia versus Georgia Tech on the ACC network or whatever. I can't take any more Mike Trubisky.
If Gus Johnson and Bill Raftery are doing a St. John's against Creighton game, I'm watching that before I'm watching anything ACC except for Syracuse.
I honestly agree with you, and it sounds like we're almost being being sticklers about it, but it's the whole feels different.
More entertaining basketball. It's what we love. It's what we've grown to love. It's what you can't unplug it. You can't make yourself not like that basketball.
Right, as opposed to, NC State versus Clemson on, with Mike Jaminski on the color commentary. And Bojangles commercials, and Food Lion commercials. And the worst part about it is I love Bojangles. I don't know about Food Lion, but I love Bojangles, but there's none of them available up here to me, so it's just like insult to injury making me watch all those commercials.
Food Lion's bad. Food Lion's the worst.
It's no Wegmans, I bet.
This is just not. No, it doesn't even try to be Wegmans. It tries to be Walmart more than it tries to be Wegmans. Mm. So here's the top 10 returning scorers in the Atlantic Coast Conference. Number 1 is Xavier Rathan-Mays from Florida State.
Okay.
Do you remember Xavier Rathan-Mays from Florida State?
Vaguely.
I don't.
Yeah.
I don't at all. Second, Cody Miller-McIntyre, Wake Forest.
Yeah.
That one I'm familiar with.
Yeah.
Third, Sheldon McClellan from Miami. Fourth is Marcus Page, Carolina. Fifth, Malcolm Brogdon, Virginia. Sixth is Jamel Artis, Pittsburgh. Remember him. Seventh, Marcus Georges Hunt, Georgia Tech. Eighth, Trevor Cooney, Syracuse University.
Oh, wow.
At 13.4 points per game, the eighth leading returning scorer in the conference. Number 9, Michael Young, Pitt. And number 10, Jaron Blossom Game from Clemson.
Ugh.
Very esteemed list right there, Jim.
I know. What a terrible list of players.
Well, to be fair, the top players all went pro.
Yeah, they all go
that's the
pro.
area we live in, right?
Sucks.
Where if you're a good player in college, you better be going pro or you got something wrong with you.
Yeah, I suppose it is. But, it's hard to develop. And that's why I'm having trouble remembering some of these guys is because I just don't care. During the regular season, I don't care much at all. It's too bad. It's life in the ACC is about as bad as I could ever hoped it would have been. And even the payoff of the Duke Carolina matchups, I don't even it's not much of a payoff.
I don't really care about that game.
It's oh boy,
they kept advertising during the. I was joking with my dad and my son. We were watching the Syracuse game today, and they kept showing ads for Monday night games, Duke and Elon, and North Carolina against UNC Greensboro, and they showed that ad 5 times. Like, I don't even care. I there's no chance I'll watch either of those games. No chance.
Yeah.
Maybe that makes me a bad college basketball fan, but there's no chance I'm going to watch those games.
No, I refuse to believe it, and part of me has had a little bit of a guilt trip because usually this time of year I'm watching all the college hoops I can, it really isn't that Syracuse is not a top 10 team that's making me disinterested. It's the general state of the game and the fact that I loved rooting for all the Big East teams when they weren't playing Syracuse. They're playing out of conference. And so that was a reason to watch a ton of games. And I really also wanted to learn about what each Big East team had, which is very interesting. And like you say, in the ACC, I just don't care about McClellan down there at Miami or Mays down there at Florida State.
I'm going to ask you a couple more ACC trivia questions, and then we'll get off this
yeah, it started to really,
topic.
It's really dampen the holiday mood around here.
But this trivia is supposed to be uplifting, not depressing. Sorry about that.
That's good. Yeah, usually it's a trip.
Who scored the most points in a single game for any ACC team at any point ever?
Oh boy, what player?
What player?
Most points for any ACC team.
Think of the great ACC players. This is a guy you've heard of, so this doesn't go back.
Yeah, I wouldn't think it'd be Michael Jordan. James Worthy, Mike, it had to be a guard, probably, right?
Maybe what?
Was it a guard?
No, big guy.
Oh wow, okay. Brad Daugherty.
Correct.
Yeah. Big guy. Can I say Len Bias? I know it's not right.
You can, but you'd be wrong. I'd appreciate that you did, but yeah, that's wrong. No, not Len Bias.
I imagine we got to go back in time.
You're going back to 1988.
Oh, 88. That's not that far back. And it was a big guy in 1988. Nope. Sam Perkins? No, he was early 80s.
No, he was early 80s.
Ooh, big guy in the ACC. It probably wasn't anybody on Carolina or Duke, right? It was probably someone else.
It was a Duke player.
It was a Duke player in 1988. Danny Ferry. No. Couldn't be Danny Ferry, could it?
It could have definitely be Danny Ferry. 58 points for Danny Ferry against Miami in 1988.
Are you kidding me?
Danny Ferry had 58 points in a game.
That's
most ever for an ACC player.
That's crazy.
Yeah, isn't it?
Who was it against? You have that info?
What's that?
Who was he playing? Oh, he was playing against Miami.
Against Miami.
In which at that time was a non-conference game.
I'm guessing Miami, Florida.
Yeah, it wasn't either way. It was a non-conference game.
Close.
Yeah, 58 points. Oh my.
The only other guys. So here's a couple on this list. Like, there's a lot that go back into the early days. David Thompson from NC State. He would have been a good guess.
Yeah.
He had 57 against Buff State.
Would have been a better.
NC State was playing Buffalo State. I don't know, but they played in 1974, and David Thompson rocked them for 57.
Yeah, Buff State was D2.
Kenny Anderson had 50 in a game in 1990.
Oh, that would have been a good guess, yeah.
Against Loyola Marymount, which shouldn't surprise you.
Yeah, they were up and down back then.
Right. Rodney Monroe for NC State in 1991. He had 48 against Georgia Tech. Tyrese Rice for Boston College in 2008 had 46 against Carolina. And Al Thornton in 2007 for Florida State had 45 in a game. Those are the only guys in the kind of the modern era. The rest, you got to go way back.
All right. Well, we got one more for us, Brad.
That's an impressive list. All right, I'll give you one more. Who's got the record for most assists in an ACC game for an ACC team?
In an ACC game, most assists. Let's go.
Most assists.
Oh, man. Who is the...
This is a list you would be very familiar with if I rattled this list down.
Mark Price? Is he on the list? Is Mark Price on the list?
Mark Price is on this list, but he is not at the top of this list.
Okay. Kenny Anderson.
Kenny Anderson, no. Kenny Anderson had 18 assists in one game, which is surprising because he was a volume shooter. I mean, you don't score 50 in a game unless you're not. But he also had Dennis Scott and
right.
A lot of other talent on that team, too.
What about Stephon Marbury? I wouldn't think
he's
another gunner, but might be on that list, but might have had an assist game. Stephon Marbury?
Marbury.
Starbury?
No, I don't see him on this list.
Okay, yeah.
He only played 1 year, and he was only a freshman, I think. I don't think he played 2 years. I think he just played his freshman year. This guy was a great assist man. It was not a gunner at all.
Oh boy, it's just a lot of teams I'm thinking of right now. What about Charlie Ward?
Charlie Ward's not a bad guess, but no. I'll give you a hint. He played for NC State.
NC State. Oh, the guy who I can't think of his name. He threw the alley-oop pass or missed the shot that was dunked in the one NC State, the national title.
No, not Derek Wittenberg.
Wittenberg, yeah.
Or Sidney Lowe.
Chris Corchiani?
But no, not him.
Chris Corchiani?
Chris Corchiani's correct.
There you go.
He had 20 assists in a game against Maryland in 1991. I actually like the assist list in the ACC better than the points list.
Yeah.
You've got Corchiani, you've got
King Rice on there?
Spud Webb, Kenny Anderson. What's that?
King Rice?
I don't see King Rice on this list, no. Kenny Anderson, Ray Felton, Muggsy Bogues is on here a couple times. Jeff Lebo, Ed Cota.
Jeff Lebo.
Kendall Marshall, Bobby Hurley, and then Corchiani's on here a bunch more times.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Great trivia.
ACC.
Great trivia, as usual, even though it did make me sad to have to pour over those ACC teams over and over in my head, and all that rich ACC history. We got about 8 minutes left here to get through our two for the road segment. And so, first one, we just talked about kind of Roberson's progress on the curve, and Malachi Richardson came in And I was pretty convinced that this guy was going to be like a one-and-done caliber, best shooter ever type of guy. And I'm a little disappointed with his progress so far. And it's unfair to him, I suppose, because he wasn't the one putting those expectations on him. That's what I had envisioned in my head after hearing all the recruiting hoopla and even watching him in the preseason games. But yeah, he's just not he's not too effective out there. He's not ready for prime time.
A lot of it depends on how you gauge success for a freshman anymore.
Yeah.
I mean, 5-6 years plus ago, a freshman came in and contributed a little bit, and even started. That's a huge accomplishment. I mean, it was crazy that obviously the Fab Five was a complete anomaly going back 20 years, and then in 2003 you had Carmelo Anthony and Jerry McNamara starting, and you had Billy Edelin playing quality minutes, and these guys were freshmen, and that was crazy at that time. You were a team led by a freshman, and now that's standard, that's expected. Whereas before that was unusual, and I think Tyler Ennis came in and raised the expectation of what a freshman can do for this program, but historically freshmen have not really done much in this program. They've come in and started, and you remember guys like Brandon Trish who were 4-year starters, but as freshmen they didn't do much, and you didn't expect them to do much. But as long as
you got your Pearl Washingtons, you got your Pearl Washingtons, your Derek Colemans.
That has higher expectations.
Yeah, that was kind of what I was thinking of with Malachi, but yeah, I was wrong, I think, and no fault of his own. He's going to be a great player for us. It's just that, looking at this team so far, Richardson's just another part of the reason why I think that these guys have not been as good as we hoped they'd be so far. And certainly he can continue to grow.
My issue with Malachi Richardson is he just falls in love with a three-point shot. He's a nice three-point shooter, and when he's set, he knocks them down more often than not. But he shoots off balance. He shoots it coming down on the break. He shoots it, coming off screens when he just doesn't get his feet set, and he's shooting step backs and fadeaways, and he's as athletic as anybody on this team. I don't think anybody would argue that. But I'm looking at the season stats. He shot 79, I don't know if this includes today's numbers or not. He shot 79 three-pointers and 48 two-pointers on this season. That's crazy to me. And he should be attacking the basket just as much as he's launching threes. But he's with the three-point shooters that this team has, you've got Benajay who can obviously knock shots down. You've got Trevor Cooney who's has become a pretty one-dimensional three-point shooter. And Richardson should be slashing and attacking as much as he is shooting threes. But man, he just wants to just sit out there and jack threes.
Yeah, he was 1 for 5 today and 4 for 10 from the field. So half the shots he took were threes. He only made one of them. The shots he took inside the mark.
Because he is starting to attack a little bit, and we are seeing good things from him.
And he also took a hard fall today. So hopefully that won't. Hopefully he won't be hindered. Especially with ACC play coming up and the inexperienced guys behind him that haven't had much time to play, as we talked about earlier. So, okay.
Right.
2 for the road. Pitt, Miami predictions. When we're back here Sunday, what are we talking about? 2 straight road losses to start the ACC? Boy, that wouldn't be much fun. What do you think?
The fact that they're both on the road, I don't particularly like that. 9 o'clock start, I don't like that either. It's just not a recipe for success, and I think if they're going to win either of them, they're going to beat Pitt. They're not going to beat Miami. Miami's tough, man. They're playing well. They're a good, solid, well-coached team. That's the game I fear more than the Pitt game. I have a bad feeling they're going to go 0 for 2. I think at best it's 1 for 1. It's 1-1, and they beat Pitt on Tuesday night, or on Wednesday night. But I don't have high confidence in either.
At the moment, I would say that they're going to lose them both, and I'm usually pretty optimistic. Hopefully, they can. They're hitting their threes, and we can pull.
It comes down to that in the end. It'll always come down to that.
Yeah. And if we shoot at a 40% clip, we probably will win both those games. But what are the odds of that?
But I think what we found this season is it's impossible to predict this team, because it's completely and utterly dependent on whether or not they make threes. And you just never know that from game to game. You just never know.
Yeah, 100% agree with you there. And so that's why it's kind of silly to speculate. If they make the threes, they'll either win or be close. If they don't, they might get blown off the court on the road. They'll come back home to play Clemson on Tuesday, January 5th, before hosting North Carolina, and when Boeheim returns on Saturday, January 9th. And I don't know if they set a time for that North Carolina game yet. It's either 2 o'clock in the afternoon or 8 o'clock at night. So, well, Brad,
as of right now, they've not.
They haven't decided yet. Mind everybody to subscribe on YouTube, iTunes, or Stitcher.com. And Brad, hope you have a great New Year's. And the next time that I suppose we'll be talking, it will be 2016.
Same to you, Jim. Enjoy the New Year's. Be safe.
Yes, definitely stay safe. We need to make sure we're all in good health for next week's episode, where we're going to talk about those Pitt Miami. I'm hoping that the ACC schedule will rejuvenate me a little bit on the Cuse and then college basketball in general. So let's go. Come on, let's get down there to the Pete, especially at Pittsburgh. Maybe have a little Big East feel to it. Come on, let's go. Let's see some basketball, Cuse. You know what I'm saying?
I like it.
All right. Well, here we go. Here, let me get us out of here. Thanks for joining us on the Upstate Orange podcast. We'll be back again next Sunday night with another edition. You can subscribe to our feed on iTunes, Stitcher.com, YouTube, or via RSS. We're online at www.fingerlakes1.tv/upstateorange. And so for the Professor, Brad Connor, I'm Jim Sinacropi. Have a great week, Happy New Year, and let's go Orange.